It's 20 years since Joan Kirner was Premier of Victoria, and this week she was awarded Australia's highest honour for her service to the community. But what's not widely known is that Joan Kirner has no parliamentary pension, and she's had to rely on other people's generosity to pay for the medical treatment she needs. The former Premier is reluctant to speak publicly about her financial difficulties, but she did reveal her plight to the ABC's Compass program in an interview yet to be aired. The former Police Chief Commissioner Nixon is outraged by the situation, and she joined me in the studio. Nixon, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
How did you find out, and what was your reaction to learning that the former Premier Joan Kirner doesn't have a parliamentary pension?
I was part of a program, the Compass program, and it was a dinner, and we were talking about a range of issues, and I think Joan said to us that she'd finished in Parliament and was not given any kind of a pension, and I think the other women who were there were just really shocked that someone who had given such an enormous commitment and made such a commitment to the state of Victoria wasn't entitled to a pension. And I suppose, given that I've had a lot of experience in pensions, I understood that there had to be some sort of provision about invalid or people who are injured or ill, and maybe some kind of consideration taken on that.
Is she struggling financially?
Look, I mean, Joan is a very proud woman and she works enormously hard for the citizens, and I've sort of worked with her on a range of issues, but she has a lot of medical expenses. She's not well, and yet she still struggles to get and does things. But I think, certainly some assistance financially would be greatly appreciated.
The rules of Parliament were that she had to serve 15 years in Parliament before being eligible. She didn't serve those 15 years. Why should the rules be changed for her?
Look, I think it's, rules are there. They're made for all the right reasons. But I think it's not just about her. Perhaps it's about others who might have been in a circumstance. I think partly she may have, been caught up in the politics of the time, and particularly with the change of government, and maybe Labor wasn't prepared to take it on. But I think this stage, perhaps the current Premier and the trustees of the fund might reconsider the situation and have a look at whether or not there's a possibility of any kind of recompense to her. And perhaps if there are one or two others, then they might think about that. Because I think if you look at federal Parliament, after 8 years you're entitled to a pension. So I think it's a matter that Victoria's is quite a long time, and I think maybe they might consider that, and hopefully not seen by the media as being, sort of pigs in the trough, as they sometimes say, but more about a great commitment that people make to this state through Parliament.
I understand that the government would have to change the Superannuation Act to allow Joan Kirner to have a pension. Should that be done? What do you want to see happen?
I'd like to see that, first of all, I'd like to see the trustees of the fund, they're members of Parliament, that they make a decision that they might reconsider the case. And the second is that you could look to see if they feel they're limited by the Act, then Parliament does change legislation every day it sits, and I think it's something that could be done, not just for Joan, but perhaps others where they've been ill, and take that into account. And I guess the final option is whether or not you gave some sort of ex gratia payment. And I've done that in the police, particularly for various sort of serious matters, and I think it's a matter of the decision makers just having a bit of courage to think about righting a wrong.
What do you think about a situation that means a former Premier of this state has had to ask or had relied on people to help her pay for her medical treatment?
Look, I think, as I said, Joan's a very proud woman, and people who've supported Joan, I'm sure, have done what they wanted to do. But in this case, because it's a very bureaucratic piece of legislation that I think is very tight. I mean, these days, not a lot of people will be in Parliament for that long to get that kind of entitlement. So I think a proportional entitlement, as there is in the federal Parliament and I think in other state parliaments. So I think it's very sad to see someone who's given so much, recently been recognised with an Australian order, and daily is out there encouraging people from all walks of life in Victoria. I think we should find a way to be able to support her and help her in a very difficult time.
On another matter, as the former Police Chief Commissioner, what did you think when you heard that the Parliamentary Secretary for Police, the former Parliamentary Secretary Bill Tilley, had admitted that he secretly tape recorded a conversation with the Police Minister?
I suppose my first response was that Bill Tilley was a policeman, and police officers in many ways will protect themselves, and the sort of notes, or in that case tape recording, I wasn't surprised at all.
Did it make you change your mind over the circumstances of Simon Overland's resignation?
Oh, look, I think there's still a whole lot of issues around that resignation that is still need to be dug into a bit more than they have, and who was responsible and why. I think a good man, was moved on, and I think that's a sad case, but I think perhaps we need to look a bit closer at who was involved and why.
Would you like the eye back when and if it is up and running to investigate?
I think when and if it is. That hopefully with good people in charge who are decent and fair and reasonable, they might be able to at least have a look at it and give us some explanation. I don't mean you had to go back to inquiries or anything. I mean they might just look at the facts, try and draw them together and try and explain to the citizens of Victoria exactly what happened.
Christine Nixon, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Josie. Nice to see you.
And Joan Kirner does tell her story to Compass on Sunday, August the 12th.